got a question, we got the clue. Science made simple, made for you. Physics, chemistry, math, biology. A Keeley Point hub will help you break through. A Keeley Point hub, let's rise and shine. Learn together, one step at a time.
Okay, hello guys. Karibu tena kwenye channel yetu ya Keeley Point Hub. Na leo tunaendelea na kipindi cha pili pale tulipoishia kipindi cha kwanza. And today we are continue with the nervous coordination in human being. Nervous coordination in human being. Kipindi kilichopita tulisema kwamba there are three components that are needed for the nervous coordination to occur in human being, and these three components are receptor, coordinator, and effector. So the components, three components. The very first one, it is receptor, coordinator, and the last is effector. So in this lesson we are going to see these three main components that coordination could be brought about, and the very first component is receptor. So when we talk about receptor, we can see these are the ones who receive the information. Au tunaweza tukasema kwamba wapokea taarifa. And a good example of receptors, they are sensory organs like eyes, ears, nose, skin. Kwa hizi zote ni receptors. Na receptors, these are the very specialized cells that detect environmental change. Kwa kazi mojawapo ya receptor ni kwamba zina detect any change from the environment. Mabadiliko yoyote yale ya kwenye mazingira, kwa mfano kama vile mwanga, joto, upepo, pressure, sauti, zote hizo zinakuwa detected by the receptor. Na vitu ambavyo vinakuwa detected by the receptor tunasema kwamba ni stimulus. So example of the stimulus are light, kama ambavyo kwenye kipindi kilichopita niwaambia examples za stimulus, kuna light, kuna sound. So the sound, the light, and any environmental change are being detected by the receptor. The receptor, we can take a good example on sensors. Tunaweza tukasema kwamba receptors ni kama sensors au CCTV camera. Ni receptor, manake zina detect any environmental change. Labda joto limeongezeka, joto limepungua, na bila receptor manake mtu huwezi ukasikia, huwezi ukaona, huwezi ukasikia sauti yoyote ile, kwa sababu receptors zinapatikana kwenye hizi sensory organs. And one of the example of the receptor is photoreceptor. Photoreceptor inapatikana kwenye macho, ina detect light. But also there is thermoreceptor. Thermoreceptor ipo kwenye skin, ina detect hot or cold. So now we are going to the second component, which is coordinator. Coordinator, hii ni sehemu ya kupokea taarifa sasa, au impulses zinazotoka kwenye receptor. Tumesema kwamba receptor ina take changes from the environment. Now receptor kishachukua zile change, example maybe it is sound, it is light, inaituma sasa kwenye coordinator. Kwa maana yake coordinator anapokea zile changes, anaziprocess, anaziratibu, then ana give appropriate answer. Kwa hiyo hii ni sehemu inayopokea taarifa kutoka kwa receptor, inaziprocess na kuamua jibu la kitu kifanyike au action yoyote ile itakayotokea. Na baada ya receptor kupata taarifa, maybe tuseme umeungua, stimulus ni joto, na itakayochukua ile taarifa maana yake itakuwa ni skin, kwamba ise huyu mtu kuna joto limeongezeka. Now that information is being sent to the brain. Na kwenye coordinator hapa tutaona kuna brain and spinal cord. Kuna brain but also spinal cord. Spinal cord. So hawa ndo wanaochakata zile taarifa ambazo zinaletwa na receptor. And the last component we say that it is effector. Hasa effector ni nini? Effector tunasema kama ni watendaji. Hivi ni viungo ambavyo vinapokea respond from the coordinator, alafu sasa zina bring into action or respond. Mwisho kabisa tunamwona huyu effector ndiye mtekelezaji maagizo. What do I want to mean? When the receptor give the or send the information to the coordinator, then coordinator give the order to the effector. Kwa coordinator anatoa order tu kwamba do this. Contract the muscle, muscle ina contract. Kwa effector ni kwa vile muscles, kuna gland, maybe gland inakuwa ordered to release the hormone. How muscle inakuwa ordered to lift up the hand. So these are the main three components. Without them, then coordination could not take place. Without these three components working together, the nervous system or nervous coordination in human being could never take in place. So, by summarizing, I would like to show you a very simple connection on how these three components they connect together. So, the receptor detects information. Detects. So after the receptor detect, coordinator its process. Kwa coordinator ana receive na kuchakata ile taarifa. Then the last one it is effector. Effector inafanya kazi ya kuact and give response. Okay, and these three things they do work in a minute. Na ndo maana mtu ukichomwa, yani situation tu ya kuchomwa tuseme na miba au na moto, kunyanyua hivi yani ni zaidi ya nusu sekunde sisi tuseme. Kwa hiyo ni vitu ambavyo vinaenda kwa uharaka zaidi. Sasa I want you to connect this idea kwamba now how could the receptor transmit the information to the coordinator? And how do the coordinator give the order to the effector? Maana hapa katikati kuna vitu ambavyo vinapeleka ile taarifa. So kwamba receptor tu inapokea na inapelekaje. Kwa hapa katikati kuna vitu ambavyo vinapeleka taarifa na vinafanya sasa hapa na kupo na nervous system. And now we are going to see the neurons. Neurons hizi ndo cells sasa zinazosaidia kupeleka taarifa sehemu mbalimbali, kupeleka hizi nerve impulses into different parts into the central nervous system. Now from the receptor to the central nervous system, there is the neuron over there which take the information or the impulse from the receptor then to the coordinator. And from the coordinator sasa, coordinator anapitishaje zile taarifa au order kumfikia muscle au kumfikia effector. Maana hapo katikati kuna neuron ambao ndo nafanya hiyo connection ya kupeleka hizo taarifa. Sasa hapa nataka tukaone neuron ni nini. Tukaone parts za neuron, and then lastly we see the types of neuron. So in this part we are going to see the neuron itself, the structure of a neuron, and lastly we are going to see the types of neuron. So the neuron, these are the basic units or basic function unit of the nervous system. Without neuron means no information can be transferred. Without neuron, the receptor cannot transfer the information from the receptor to the coordinator. Without the neuron, the brain cannot transfer the information from it to the muscles. So we are going to see the neuron, their structure, how do they adapt to perform that function of transform the impulses or transform the message from one place to another place. By the introduction, the neuron system is mainly composed of the specialized cells called neuron. I mean the nervous system, it's composed of the specialized cell called neuron. And these neurons are conducting cells of the nervous system found between the receptor and the effector. These neurons have the different characteristics which differ them from another cell. Hizi neuron ni cell kama cell, ni nerve cells kama cells zingine, labda cells za growth, cells zingine kwenye mwili, lakini zina characters ambazo zinawatofautisha wao na cells zingine. Hasa kwa nini neurons zimekuwa adapted ili ziweze kuperform hiyo function ya kutransform information? Cha kwanza ni kwamba neurons, they are very active toward stimulus. So neuron, when they are just stimulated either by chemical or by anything, they are very highly to react and they can very actively toward the stimulus. They can act actively toward the stimulus. So they are being made for the purpose of transforming the impulse from one place to another place, and that's why they are very active. They are very active toward any change of the environment. But the other character which differentiates the neuron from other cells is that they can transform the message in form of electricity. Okay, transform the message or nerve impulse fast like electricity. Kuna muda niliwaambia mjiulize, je, ile action tu ya kunyanyua mkono kutoka chini kuupanisha tu juu ni kitendo cha dakika chache sana. Kwa maana yake tunaona kwamba hizi impulses zinafanya kazi ndani ya sekunde chache, zinafanya kazi haraka, zina conduct zile impulse in a second, sometimes even less than a second. So they are very actively and they can transport these impulses from one place to another place very fast. But any other thing which differentiates the nerve cells is their capacity to conduct the nerve impulses. They are responsible for transmit the impulses from one part of the body to another part of the body. Okay, now we are going to the structure of the neuron. Naomba tukaangalie structure sasa. Ikoje hii nerve tunaiongelea. The nerve or the neuron has the very three basic structure. Neuron kama neuron huwa zinatofautiana, kuna neuron mbalimbali, lakini hizi neuron zina basic structure ambayo inafanana zote, yani zinafanana zote. Cha kwanza, a neuron has a cell body. Cell body. Cha pili ni dendrites. Dendrites. Na cha tatu ni axon. So it doesn't matter the function that a specific neuron perform, it should have these three basic structure. We are starting from the cell body. What is the cell body? So we're starting from the cell body. The cell body, hii tunaweza tukasema like is the main part of the neuron. Means without the cell body, means that neuron cannot exist. The cell body consists of the nucleus, consists of the mitochondria, but also consists of the cytoplasm. The nucleus controls all the cell activities, and the mitochondria produce the energy for that cell to work. So we can see without cell body, means the cell cannot able to perform the function of transmit the impulse. Without the cell body, the cell cannot able to get energy to transfer the information. So the cell body, it is very, very important. Now we come to the dendrites. The other part of the neuron, it is dendrite. Dendrites, these are extension-like structure. They capture the signals or the impulse from different cells. They have extended out of the cell body and they are like, tunaweza tukasema ni kama vile zimekaa kama vile antena, maanake zinachukua taarifa kutoka kwenye seli moja zinaingiza ndani ya cell body. Kwa dendrites kazi yake kubwa, zina take information from the other cell na kuziingiza kwenye cell body alafu kuzitransform kwenda kwenye axon. Hiyo ni mojawapo ya function ya dendrites. Dendrites zimeextend, unaweza kukuta cell moja ina dendrites nyingi, ziko kama matawi, zimegawanyika kama ambavyo mtaona kwenye picha hapo. Lakini the very third part, it is axon. Axon, this is the long extension. Ni kama vile tuseme wire sasa wa umeme. Mrefu kweli. Manake una take the information from the cell body away from the cell. So it's as how the dendrites take the information from the other cell toward the cell. Now the axon take the information from the cell body out of the cell. And this axon, it is highly extended. Yani ni ndefu, unakuta ni ndefu sana. Apart from axon, there are other features or structures which are present in the axon. The very first structure that present in the axon, it is myelin sheath. Myelin sheath tunaweza tukasema ni kama vile koti la umeme. Kama ambavyo waya umeme umefunikwa na ile nyeupe ambayo watu tunaona. Hasa the same applies to the axon. Nimesema kwamba axon tuchukulie mfano, naomba kichwani kwako uweka taswira ya waya wa umeme. Hiyo ndo axon. Hasa myelin sheath, hii ni lile gamba la nje ambalo huwa linazunguka nyaya ya umeme. The same applies with the myelin sheath in the axon. Kwa myelin sheath, it is fat layer that covers the axon. One of the function of the myelin sheath, it prevents the damage of the axon, but also it is help the highly speed transmission of the impulse. So when there is the myelin sheath, means there is high rate speeding of the impulse from one cell to another cell. But apart from the myelin sheath, there is synaptic knob, or we can say that is an axon terminal. Axon terminal, this it is at the back of the axon or at the end of the axon, and its work, it's produce the neurotransmitters, which now the information are be taken from one cell to the another cell. We can say that is the axon termination, where the axon has been ended. So they produce chemical called neurotransmitters, which can stimulate or can facilitate the taking of the information from the another cell. The another part, it is Schwann cell. Schwann cell, as how I pronounce the Schwann cell. So these are the cells which they produce the myelin sheath. So are the cells which produce or manufacture. Tunaweza kusema kwamba ndo kiwanda sasa ambapo myelin sheath au ile fat layer ambayo inamzunguka axon inatengenezwa. Kwa the Schwann cells, their function, it is to produce the myelin sheath. But also the another part which it is within the axon, it is node of Ranvier. We are saying that these impulses are not just flowing as how the water is flowing into the pump. Yani information au hizi impulse zinakuwa transmitted, haziflow tu kama ambavyo maji huwa yana flow bombani, hapana. Hizi information zinakuwa zinaruka from one myelin sheath zinaenda kwenye another myelin sheath. Sasa ile nafasi ambayo ipo kati ya myelin sheath moja na myelin sheath nyingine ndo tunaita node of Ranvier. So here is where the electron impulses or the information are jumping from one myelin sheath to another. So this is the gap between one myelin sheath with the another myelin sheath. And there we have finished on the structure of neuron. Hope you have understand. Now we are going to the types of neuron. Now we have seen the basic structure of the neuron. Now we have to know the different types of neuron. what are those neurons now who take the information from the receptor to the central nervous system, or from the central nervous system to the effector. Now we are going to see those types of a neuron. There are 3 types of neuron. 3 types of neuron. The first one is sensory neuron. The second one is relay neuron or intermediate neuron. And the last, it is motor neuron. So these types of neuron have been classified according to their function. They do perform different function as how you see them, but also their names have been given according to their function they perform. Now we are going to see one type of a neuron to another type of a neuron. Now we are going to start with the sensory neuron. What is the sensory neuron? So based on the structure and the function, we have obtained this sensory neuron. They are also known as afferent neuron. They are also known as afferent. Afferent. Afferent neuron. So the afferent neuron or the sensory neuron, their mostly function, it is to take the information from the receptor to the central nervous system. Now we come in to see one step by another. So the one who take the information from the receptor to the central nervous system, it is sensory neuron. So the sensory neuron has been adapted to the function of carrying the information or carrying the nerve impulse from the receptor to the central nervous system. Kwa hiyo hii nerve au hii neuron kazi yake ni kutoa taarifa kutoka kwenye receptor na kupeleka kwenye central nervous system, ambapo kwenye central nervous system saa zile tulisema kwamba ni ubongo na uti wa mgongo. So tunaweza tukasema fikiria kwamba sensory neuron ni kama vile security guides wa mwili wako, yani ndo wanaolinda mwili wako tuseme. Security guide, wanaoshikilia doria kwenye mwili wako. So whenever there is any environmental change, wana react, wana take information, wanapeleka to the main office tuseme, to the main office. So here we take an example like sensory neurons. Hawa ni askari wanaofanya doria kwenye mwili wako. Manake wanaangalia kama kuna change yoyote itakayotokea, wapeleke information, au kama kuna kitu chochote kile kitakachotokea kibaya kwenye mwili wako, basi kipeleke information kwenye the main office, ambao the main office yetu sasa itakuwa ni the central nervous system. Naomba uweke hiyo taswira kichwani kwako ninavyoendelea kukuelezea kwamba the sensory nervous system tumesema kwamba ni kama askari wanaochukua ulinzi kwenye mwili wako, afu the central nervous system watakuwa sasa ni the main office. So now what is the function of the security guide kwenye mwili wako? Manake atakuwa anachukua taarifa yoyote ile ambayo umeipata, maybe umechomwa. Manake atachukua hiyo taarifa kwamba huyu jamaa amechomwa, tufanyaje? So the central nervous system ambao ndo the main office watachakata ile taarifa ambayo the sensory neuron kaipeleka, then they will give the answer on what to be done. So the sensory neuron is the one supposed to take the information from the receptor. Receptor tumesema kwamba kuna example ni skin, example ni eyes, example ni ear. So anachukua taarifa either kwenye skin, either kwenye macho au sehemu nyingine zote za sensory organs, then anapeleka kwenye central nervous system. So now nafikiri hapo mmeelewa kwenye sensory neuron. Tunakuja kwenye relay neuron. Relay neuron ni nini? Sasa nimesema kwamba relay neuron na another word tunamuita kama intermediate. Intermediate neuron. The word intermediate mean between. Maana yake huyu ni neuron ambaye anakaa katikati. Anakaa katikati ya sensory neuron na motor neuron. Kwa relay neuron huyu anakaa ni intermediate. And obviously relay neuron is being found in the brain but also in the spinal cord. You cannot find the relay neuron in any other area exception on brain and spinal cord. And what is the main function? The main function of the relay neuron connecting the information from the brain to the motor neuron, from the sensory neuron to the motor neuron. So relay neuron huwa wanachukua taarifa kutoka kwenye brain au spinal cord, na wakishachukua hizo taarifa basi wanazipeleka kwenye motor au receptor ambapo analeta kwenye ubongo. A good example, tunaweza tukasema mtu umechomwa na moto au mtu umechomwa na miba tuseme. Ile taarifa itaenda kwenye ubongo. Lakini kabla haijafika kwenye ubongo, the sensory neuron ambaye ndo tumesema anachukua taarifa kutoka kwenye receptor anapeleka kwenye ubongo, lazima connect na relay neuron. Kwa relay neuron yanakaa katikati. Relay neuron akishapeleka taarifa kwenye brain akitoa majibu, relay neuron tena huyo anapeleka ile taarifa kwenye motor. Kwa hiyo the word saying intermediate ni kwamba yupo katikati, ana connect the sensory neuron and the motor neuron. So now we are going to see the motor neuron. We have seen the sensory neuron but also the relay neuron. Now the motor neuron. What is the motor neuron? Motor neuron ni nini? So motor neuron tunaweza tukasema kwamba hawa ni kama watenda kazi ambao wanapokea maamuzi kutoka kwenye brain na kupeleka sasa kwenye effectors. At the beginning I told you that there is coordinator, then after coordinator there is effector. So after the coordinate has coordinating the information, the coordinator transform the information to the effector through the motor neuron. So the motor neuron is the one which transport the information from the brain to the effector. So the effector here we can see is like muscles but also glands. Shortly we can see that. Now I have a little summary here which could help you on how to understand this concept. So we have been talked about 3 types of neuron. And the very first type is sensory neuron. Now, initial stage. Where is the sensory neuron initiated its activity? It is from the receptor. Here the receptors we can see example is skin. You can say skin. Okay, now destination. Where is the destination of the sensory neuron? It is the central nervous system. Here's the destination. Central nervous system. So the sensory neuron takes the impulse from the receptor to the central nervous system. So its function, it is sensation or transfer information from the receptor to the central nervous system. Now the second type we have said it is relay neuron. So the initial part where the relay neuron starts its function, it is from the central nervous system. I told you that relay neuron, it is only being found in the central nervous system, in the brain and spinal cord. And the destination, it is within the central nervous system. And the function, it is to its function as an intermediate. So it connects the sensory neuron sensory neuron and relay neuron. I mean in motor and motor neuron. And the last type, we say that it is the motor neuron. So where is the initial stage of the motor neuron? So motor neuron starts from the central nervous system. It takes the order from the central nervous system, then destination to the effector. Effector, these are the muscles. But also glands. The examples of central nervous system here is brain, spinal cord. Spinal cord. So the function of the motor neuron. So here it is movement. If it takes the information from to the muscle, here the function could be the respond. Say it is movement. And this is the brief summary which could help you in summarizing the function of these three types of neuron. Thank you so much.
Unlock your future, discover what's true. Where the puzzle's unpuzzled. Oh.